let's get to the two Facebook fights. Aaron Simpson, 12 wins, 3 losses. Mike Pierce, 14-5. This one in the welterweight division. This is one hell of a fight to kick off the card. This is what I like to see. Aaron Simpson coming off a decision win over Kenny Robertson on July 11th in his welterweight debut, dropping down from middleweight, while Mike Pierce got a decision win over Carlos Eduardo Roca on June 8th for the UFC. Both of these guys coming off decision victories, both good wrestling. This is one hell of an interesting fight. Aaron Simpson, 38 years old.
It's kind of ridiculous that after going from middleweight, he now drops down to welterweight. And I'm sorry, but Mike Pierce, I think he's one of those welterweights that's kind of another top 20 kind of guy between 10 and 20. He's very good. I think this is a fantastic bout. Both guys coming off unanimous decision wins in their last bouts, both fighting in the beginning of the summer. Obviously, Pierce fighting on June 8th on UFC on FX, and Simpson on July 11th at his welterweight debut.
Right.
He's got some impressive wins over real notable fighters in the middle of the division, like Ed Herman, Tom Lawler, and Brad Tavares.
Pierce has some good wins as well, though. Brock Larson, Amilcar Alves, Paul Bradley. And you look at the guys that Pierce has lost to, all via decision, but to Mark Munoz, Nate Coy, John Fitch, Johnny Hendricks, Josh Koscheck. These are cream of the crop welterweights still in the UFC, and these are his only losses. You look at Aaron Simpson, he's lost only 3 times in his career, twice via decision, one to Mark Munoz in 2010, one to Honey Marks in 2012, and lost once via TKO. That was to Chris Lieben in 2010. So he's lost at middleweight, but so far at welterweight, he's looked good, maybe looking for a resurgence in his career. Both of these guys were NC2A Division I wrestlers. Pierce with a 6-3 record in the UFC. Simpson 7-3. I mean, almost
virtually
identical records. Simpson 12-3. Pierce 14-5. I mean, very similar styles here. 2 wrestlers, 2 hard-nosed, grinded-out type fighters.
Both NCAA Division I wrestlers.
If you can bet on this fight going to decision, I would go that way. I would think that this, you know what I mean? This one is going
split decision.
All 3 rounds.
Not only a decision, but a split decision. I feel like this is going to be, it's a great matchup in the sense that you've got 2 guys that it's a virtual pick'em. And
it's tough to pick, man. I don't know.
I'm going to lean towards Aaron Simpson in his second welterweight appearance, dropping from middleweight and kind of taking out Pierce just by being the larger guy. But I'm kind of anticipating this being a slugfest, as their Division I wrestling skills, in my opinion, just may eliminate each other, but simultaneously we might be watching a grapple fest.
I don't know how this fight's going to go, but I like Aaron Simpson as well. I think he's going to pull it out. Dropping down, I think, is going to help him a lot. The size advantage over Mike Pierce. I think he'll have a size advantage, although Pierce is not the smallest welterweight in the world. We move on to a lightweight fight, the second of 2 Facebook prelims. Carlo Prater, 30 wins, 11 losses, 1 draw, taking on 21-6 Marcus LeVesseur. Prater coming off a decision loss to TJ Grant on May 15th in his last bout, while LeVesseur coming off a submission loss on the same date, May 15th, to Cody McKenzie. That McKenzie teen, that was his UFC debut, actually. He's 0-1 in the UFC, while Prater 1-1 in the UFC. He won his UFC debut by disqualification, suffering punches to the back of the head in a questionable call there by the referee in a fight with Eric Silva in January. Prater, a submissions expert, 15 of 30 wins via submission with 11 decisions and 3 knockouts. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from Brazil. LeVesseur was a 4-time NC2A Division III National Wrestling Champion, and he's fighting out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where this card is taking place. So he's going to be fighting in his hometown. 30 years old is LeVesseur. Prater, 31 here in this lightweight Facebook prelim.
I'm going to go with Marcus LeVesseur. I think that he looked extremely dominant in his bout with Cody McKenzie, whereas Prater has not looked at all impressive in any one of his UFC bouts, getting dominated by TJ Grant in his last bout and getting mauled by Eric Silva in his debut. yes, LeVesseur did fight at... was McKenzie fighting at 145 at the time, or had he dropped yet?
I think that was a 55er.
Okay. Nonetheless, I think LeVesseur looked impressive. He just got caught with a bad thing. I think LeVesseur picks up his first UFC win in this bout against Carlo Prater.
Yeah, I'm going to go with LeVesseur as well. I think that he'll be able to avoid the jiu-jitsu skills of Prater, which is his strongest suit. LeVesseur has 10 wins via knockout. Prater has only won 3 times via knockout, and he's got 15 submissions. I think LeVesseur's wrestling will control where this fight takes place, and he'll be able to beat Carlo Prater. We move along to the first Fuel TV prelim bout. Darren Uyenoyama taking on Phil Harris. Uyenoyama 7-3, Harris 21-9. This one a flyweight bout. Uyenoyama got a decision victory over Kid Yamamoto in November 2011 in his UFC debut at bantamweight. That was his last bout. He hasn't fought since then. He was actually forced out of a May bout at flyweight against John Dodson due to an injury, so he steps in now coming off an injury, while Harris replaces an injured Luis Gaudino in this fight. So a couple injuries around this one. Harris, 29 years old, from Portsmouth, England. He's currently riding a 5-fight win streak. Darren Uyenoyama is on a 2-fight win streak and is 32 years old from San Francisco, California. Harris has 13 of 21 wins via submission with 4 knockouts, while Uyenoyama has 3 of 7 wins via submission with 3 decisions and 1 knockout. He has lost 3 times, 2 decisions, 1 submission, while Harris has lost 9 times, 4 submissions, 4 knockouts, and 1 decision. This will be Harris's UFC debut, while Uyenoyama is 1-0 in the UFC, as I mentioned. This is a very, very interesting fight here at flyweight. Tough to call. You know, Harris has the experience advantage. He's younger as well. He's had more fights, and he's younger, and he's on a longer win streak. This is an interesting bout here. Harris versus Uyenoyama.
Definitely, and I'm actually extremely excited about this bout. Flyweights in action. I love the 125-pounders. I'm going to go in this bout. I'm going to go with the more experience. I'm going with Phil Harris in this one. 13 submissions, slick submissions for him. 4 knockouts and 4 decisions, whereas Uyenoyama does not have that same experience level. Yes, his last bout was a victory over the famous Kid Yamamoto. However, Kid Yamamoto has not necessarily fared very well in the UFC. I think going 1-4 so far in his tenure in the company, if he's not officially released. I like the fact that Harris is on a 5-fight win streak and that he's younger than Uyenoyama. I like Phil Harris, the Englishman, to pick up the victory.
We move along. I like Harris as well, and we'll move to the featherweight bout next on the card. I mean, featherweights are going to look big next to these flyweights, right? After seeing 125-pounders, the 145-pounders will look gigantic.
It's amazing how much 20 pounds of makes a huge size discrepancy. And it was amazing at UFC 152 when we got to see the 2 flyweights fight, Joseph Benavidez and Demetrius Johnson, followed by 2 guys that were fighting at 205 pounds.
Yeah. Just 80-pound difference there. It's unbelievable. Yeah.